A soldier kneels, clutching his wounded dog as police lie defeated. Will he save his loyal friend? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to catch our latest thrilling videos. Gunfire shattered the silence, a single shot ripping through the suburban night. Max, the German shepherd, collapsed with a piercing yelp, blood pooling beneath his dark fur. Marcus, his owner, dropped to his knees, hands trembling as he pressed them against the wound, his hoodie soaking red. The street, moments ago a quiet stretch of cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights, was now a battlefield. Two police officers stood frozen, their guns still raised, faces pale with shock. "Put your hands up," the older one shouted, voice cracking. Marcus didn't hear him. His world had narrowed to Max's shallow breaths, the dog's brown eyes dimming with pain. "Stay with me, boy," he whispered, his voice raw, desperate. Marcus, a black man with the build of a warrior, wasn't just any man. He was a ghost, a former Delta Force commander who'd walked away from war, but never from loyalty. The officers didn't know that. They saw a threat, a man in a hoodie with a big dog, and they'd acted on fear. The younger cop, barely out of training, fumbled for his radio, yelling about a suspect. He reached for something, he stammered, justifying the shot. Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with a fury that made the air feel heavy. "You shot my dog," he said, each word a blade. The officers flinched, sensing the shift. This wasn't a civilian. This was something else. The older cop lunged, swinging his baton, but Marcus was faster, impossibly fast. He caught the baton midair, twisted it free, and drove his elbow into the man's jaw, dropping him like a stone. The younger cop fired again, the bullet grazing Marcus's shoulder. But Payne was an old friend. He charged, disarming the officer with a brutal strike to the wrist, sending the gun skidding into the gutter. Both men lay groaning, their radios crackling with static. A scream cut through the chaos, a neighbor, phone in hand, recording from her porch. Marcus didn't notice. Blood dripped from his shoulder, mixing with Max's on the pavement. He scooped Max into his arms, the dog's 80 pounds feeling like nothing against the adrenaline surging through him. "You're not dying tonight," he growled, breaking into a sprint. The vet clinic was 6 blocks away, a beacon in his mind. Headlights flashed behind him, another patrol car, sirens screaming. Marcus veered into an alley, his boots splashing through puddles, Max's head lolling against his chest. The alley was a maze of dumpsters and chain-link fences, but Marcus navigated it like a predator. His Delta training kicking in, he vaulted a fence one-handed, cradling Max, and emerged onto a side street. The clinic's neon sign glowed ahead. He kicked the door open, startling Dr. Ellis, a veteran vet with steady hands and sharp eyes. "Gunshot!" Marcus roared, laying Max on the table. Blood smeared the stainless steel, and Max's whimpers tore at Marcus's heart. Dr. Ellis didn't blink, barking orders to her team. "Pressure on the wound, now," she snapped, cutting away fur to assess the damage. Marcus stepped back, his fist clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. His shoulder burned, but he ignored it. His phone vibrated, a news alert. The neighbor's video was already viral, 10,000 views in minutes. "Dog shot. #police takedown." His face was everywhere, the caption calling him unknown vigilante. Marcus silenced the phone, his eyes locked on Max. The dog's chest barely moved, each breath a battle. "Doctor?" Ellis glanced up, her expression grim. "Bullets near the lung. We're trying, but it's bad." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Save him," he said, a command, not a plea. Outside, tires screeched, red and blue lights flooded the windows, and heavy boots hit the pavement. Marcus's hand twitched toward his waist, an old habit, but he carried no weapon. Not anymore. The door burst open and 3 officers stormed in, guns drawn. "On the ground," one bellowed. Marcus didn't move, his gaze still on Max. "You're late," he said, his voice low, dangerous. The lead officer hesitated, sensing the same thing the others had. This man was no ordinary suspect. The room crackled with tension. The vet team frozen, scalpels in hand. Marcus turned, his eyes meeting the officers. And in that moment, they saw it. The shadow of a man who'd faced worse than guns and lived. "You want me? Fine," he said. "But not until he is safe." He nodded toward Max. The officer opened his mouth, but a radio crackled. Urgent voices reporting a crowd forming outside. The video had sparked protests already, chants echoing in the distance. Marcus's past was unraveling. His Delta Force code name, Ghost, about to resurface. He didn't care. Max was his anchor, the one who'd sat beside him through nights of nightmares, the only soul who'd never judged him. The officers advanced, cuffs glinting. Marcus tensed, calculating angles, ready to fight again. "But Ellis's voice cut through. "He's stabilizing," she called. Max's eyes flickered open, meeting Marcus's. A spark of hope ignited in his chest, but the sirens outside grew louder. And somewhere in the city, darker forces were watching that video, recognizing the man they had sworn to destroy. The vet clinic hummed with urgency, a sterile battlefield where life hung by a thread. Marcus stood like a sentinel, his blood-streaked hands clenched, his eyes fixed on Max's limp form under the harsh fluorescent lights. The German shepherd's chest rose faintly, each breath a fragile victory against the bullet lodged near his lung. Dr. Ellis, her face a mask of focus, worked with surgical precision, her team a blur of gloves and instruments. "We've got a pulse," she muttered, her voice steady but taut. Marcus exhaled, a flicker of relief cutting through the storm in his chest, but it was short-lived. The red and blue lights pulsing through the windows reminded him the world outside wasn't waiting. Sirens wailed, closer now, and the chants of a growing crowd, angry, confused, filtered through the walls. The video of him disarming the cops had gone viral, racking up millions of views in under an hour. Hashtags like #JusticeForMax and #Vigilante, hero tearing through social media. Marcus didn't need to check his phone to know his face was everywhere. A ghost dragged back into the light. He'd spent years burying his past, blending into this quiet suburb. But the world had a way of digging up what you hid. The clinic door swung open, and a new officer stepped in, hand on his holster, eyes wary. "Marcus Jackson?" he asked, voice clipped. Marcus didn't flinch, his gaze still on Max. "That's me," he said, low, controlled. The officer hesitated, glancing at the vet team, then back at Marcus. "You need to come with us. Now." Marcus's jaw tightened, his shoulder throbbing where the bullet had grazed him. He could take this cop, and the ones outside, too. He'd done it before, in worse places than this. But Max was fighting for his life, and Marcus wouldn't leave him. "Not until he's stable," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The officer opened his mouth, but Dr. Ellis cut in. "He's not going anywhere until I say so. This dog's got minutes, not hours." Her authority held, and the officer backed off. Muttering into his radio, Marcus caught the words Delta Force and Ghost, and his stomach twisted. Someone had dug into his file, and fast. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a headline, a mystery, a threat. His past was a vault of secrets, missions and shadows, enemies buried in forgotten wars, but it was cracking open. The crowd outside grew louder, some chanting for justice, others for his arrest. Phones glowed in the dark, live streaming the chaos. Marcus ignored it, his focus on Max's shallow breaths. Dr. Ellis stitched the wound, her hands steady despite the tension. "He's a fighter," she said, glancing at Marcus. "Like you." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. Max had been with him through the darkest nights, when the screams of fallen comrades echoed in his dreams. He'd found Max half-starved in a war zone, a pup who'd chosen him when no one else had. Losing him wasn't an option. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Ghost, you can't hide. We see you, oh." Marcus's blood ran cold. The message wasn't from a reporter or a cop. It was someone who knew his code name, someone from the life he'd left behind. He deleted it, but the words burned in his mind. He scanned the room, instincts flaring. The clinic felt exposed, its glass windows a liability. He moved to the side, positioning himself between Max and the entrance, his body a shield. The officer noticed, frowning. "Problem?" he asked. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes caught a shadow outside, a figure lingering across the street, too still to be a bystander. The man wore a dark jacket, his face obscured, but Marcus felt the weight of his gaze, a hunter's gaze. He memorized the figure's stance, the way he moved, details that could mean survival later. The figure slipped into the crowd, gone as quickly as he'd appeared. But Marcus knew this wasn't random. Someone was watching, waiting. Ellis stepped back, wiping sweat from her brow. "He's stable, for now. We need to monitor him overnight." Marcus nodded, his relief tempered by the growing sense of a noose tightening around him. He needed to move, to get Max somewhere safe. But the clinic was a trap, cops, crowds, and that shadow outside. His mind raced, mapping options. He had contacts, old allies who owed him, but reaching out meant exposing himself further. The officer's radio crackled again, this time with urgency. Crowds getting out of hand, possible protest escalation. Marcus caught the officer's glance, a mix of suspicion and unease. The man didn't know whether to arrest him or protect him. Marcus didn't care. He leaned close to Max, stroking his fur, the dog's eyes fluttering open. "We're getting out of this," he whispered. But the world was closing in. His Delta Force record was leaking, medals, kills. The codename Ghost splashed across news sites. Reporters were circling, digging for dirt. And that text, those words, "We see you," they weren't a taunt. They were a promise. Marcus straightened, his shoulder aching, his hands still stained with Max's blood. He'd wanted peace, a life where he and Max could just exist. But peace was a lie for men like him. The shadow outside, the cops, the crowd, they were just the beginning. Someone had found him, and they weren't here for answers. They were here for blood. Ellis touched his arm. "You okay?" she asked, her eyes searching his. Marcus gave a curt nod. "I will be when he is," but his mind was elsewhere. Calculating, preparing. The clinic's back exit led to an alley, a possible escape route. He'd need a distraction, a way to slip past the cops. The crowd could be both a shield and a threat, and that figure, he'd be back. Marcus knew it. The game had started, and Ghost was no longer a memory. He was alive, and he'd fight like hell to keep Max that way, too. The vet clinic's fluorescent lights buzzed like a warning, casting stark shadows across Marcus's blood-stained hands as he stood vigil over Max. The German shepherd lay still, his breathing steadier but fragile, a testament to Dr. Ellis's skill and Max's stubborn will to live. Marcus's shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed him, but pain was a distant noise, drowned out by the storm brewing in his mind. The text from the unknown number, "Ghost, you can't hide. We see you," looped in his head, each word a tripwire from a past he'd tried to bury. The crowd outside the clinic had swelled, their chants a chaotic mix of support and outrage, fueled by the viral video of him dismantling the cops. News vans lined the street, cameras flashing, turning the night into a circus. Marcus didn't care about the headlines or the hashtags. His world was here, in this room, where Max fought for every breath. But the shadow he'd seen outside, the figure in the dark jacket, wasn't a reporter or a protester. It was a predator, and Marcus knew predators. He'd been one. "Doctor," Ellis adjusted Max's IV, her eyes flicking to Marcus. "He's holding on, but we're not out of the woods," she said, her voice low. Marcus nodded, his gaze never leaving Max's fur, matted with dried blood. "Keep him alive," he said, a quiet command. The officer by the door shifted, his hand still on his holster, but Marcus ignored him. The cop wasn't the threat. Not yet. His phone buzzed again. This time a call. The number encrypted, untraceable. Marcus's instincts screamed trap, but he answered, stepping into the hall for privacy. "Who is this?" he said, his voice a blade. A familiar voice crackled through, rough with age but steady. "It's Daniels, you stubborn bastard." Marcus's grip tightened. Daniels was Delta, retired, one of the few who'd known him as Ghost and lived to talk about it. "What do you want?" Marcus asked, scanning the hall. "You're all over the news. Ghost. That video's a beacon, and it's lit up for the wrong people. Victor's alive." The name hit like a punch. Viktor Kuznetsov, arms dealer, a ghost of his own in the underworld Marcus had torn apart. Years ago, Marcus had led a raid that burned Victor's empire to the ground. Warehouses, shipments, men, all gone. He thought Victor was dead, a casualty of the chaos. "He's not," Marcus said. Not a question. Daniel's voice dropped. "He survived, rebuilt in the shadows. Word is he's been hunting you ever since. That video told him where to look." Marcus's mind raced, piecing it together. The text, the figure outside, it wasn't random. Victor was coming, and he didn't play for mercy. "He's hired muscle to use," Daniels continued. "Killers, pros, that are already in the city. You need to move, now." Marcus glanced back at Max, the IV dripping, the monitors beeping. "I'm not leaving him," he said. Daniels cursed. "You're a sitting duck. Ghost. Victor wants blood. And he's not alone. There's chatter. Someone's paying big to make sure you don't walk away." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Thanks for the heads up. Stay out of it." He hung up before Daniels could argue, his mind already shifting to strategy. Victor wasn't just a man. He was a machine of vengeance. Patient, ruthless. Marcus had taken everything from him. Power, pride, legacy. Now Victor wanted it back, starting with Marcus's life. The clinic felt smaller. The walls closing in. Marcus moved to the window, peering through the blinds. The crowd was a sea of phones and signs, but his eyes locked on a glint across the street. A scope, maybe, or a camera. Too brief to be sure, but enough to set his nerves on edge. He memorized the spot, a rooftop corner, perfect for a sniper. Back in the exam room, Ellis was checking Max's vitals. "He's tougher than most," she said, almost smiling. Marcus didn't reply. He was calculating. Exit routes, choke points, the clinic's weak spots. The back alley was his best bet, but it was a gamble with Max in this state. He needed time, and time was a luxury Victor wouldn't give. His phone pinged, another news alert. Ghost unmasked, Delta Force legend or dangerous vigilante. His service record was leaking. Missions, body counts, the code name splashed across screens. The world was tearing open his past, and Victor was watching. Marcus crouched beside Max, his hand resting on the dog's flank. "We've been through worse, haven't we?" he murmured. Max's tail twitched, a faint sign of life. Marcus's heart ached, but he pushed it down. Emotion was a liability now. He stood, turning to Dr. Ellis. "How soon can he be moved?" She frowned. "Hours. Maybe. Moving him now could kill him." Marcus nodded, his mind racing. Hours were too long. Victor's men were close. He could feel it, the way the air felt before a strike. The officer by the door was on his radio again, his voice low, urgent. Marcus caught the words reinforcements and containment. The cops weren't just here to arrest him. They were locking down the block. He was a target, and the clinic was ground zero. A noise from the hall, a soft thud, out of place. Marcus's hand twitched. wishing for the weight of a gun he hadn't carried in years. He moved to the door, peering out. The hall was empty, but a faint smell lingered. Cigarette smoke. Fresh. Someone had been here. Someone who didn't belong. He checked the back exit, finding the lock tampered. A subtle scratch on the metal. Victor's men were already circling, testing the perimeter. Marcus returned to Max, his resolve hardening. He'd fought wars, toppled empires, survived ambushes that left no one else standing. Victor thought he could break him, but Victor didn't know Max, didn't know the bond that had kept Marcus alive when the world turned dark. He leaned close to Dr. Ellis. If anyone comes through that door who isn't you or your team, lock it down, she nodded, sensing the shift in him. Marcus was no longer just a man with a dog. He was Ghost, and Ghost didn't run. He'd protect Max, no matter the cost, even if it meant facing the devil himself. Rain lashed the city, turning the streets into rivers of shadow and light. As Marcus cradled Max in his arms, the German shepherd's blood mixing with the downpour. He'd slipped out of the vet clinic's back exit moments before. Dr. Ellis at his side, her med kit clutched tight. The alley was a narrow throat of brick and steel, its darkness a fleeting shield from the chaos they'd left behind. Sirens, chanting crowds, and the viral video now searing through 20 million screens, branding Marcus as both hero and fugitive. His shoulder burned from the bullet graze, but Max's weakening pulse was the only pain that mattered. The dog's eyes, half open, held a trust that cut deeper than any wound. Marcus had vowed to keep him alive, and no army, not Victor's, not the city's, would stop him. Dr. Ellis stumbled, her breath ragged. "We can't keep running," she gasped. Marcus didn't answer, his senses razor sharp, catching the faint hum above the storm. A drone, its red light blinking through the rain, tracking them. Victor's men weren't just close, they were already here. He pulled Ellis into a recessed doorway, shielding Max as he scanned the alley's end. Headlights flashed, a black SUV screeching to a stop, blocking their path. 3 figures in tactical gear spilled out, silenced rifles glinting. Marcus's heart pounded, not with fear, but with the cold clarity of a Delta Force killer, waking from a long sleep. "Stay with him," he whispered to Ellis, easing Max into her arms. Before she could protest, he was moving, a phantom in the rain, using the alley's clutter, dumpsters, crates, as cover. The first gunman rounded a corner, rifle raised, but Marcus struck like lightning, wrenching the weapon free and slamming the man's head into the wall. The second fired, bullets sparking off brick, but Marcus was already behind him, snapping his arm with a brutal twist, the rifle clattering to the ground. The third hesitated, a fatal mistake. Marcus lunged, driving his knee into the man's gut, then smashing his face into the pavement. The SUV's driver floored it, tires squealing, but Marcus grabbed a fallen rifle, snapping off a shot that shattered the windshield. The vehicle swerved, crashing into a dumpster with a deafening crunch. Silence followed, broken only by the rain and Ellis's stifled sob. Marcus returned, his chest heaving, blood and water streaming down his face. "We need to move," he said, lifting Max again. Ellis nodded, her fear giving way to resolve. They slipped through the alley, emerging onto a side street where the crowd's chaos, protesters, reporters, police, offered a fleeting disguise. The video had turned the city into a powder keg. Hashtags like #GhostUnleashed fueling the fire. Marcus kept his head low, Max's weight grounding him, but the drone's hum returned. Closer now. He glanced up, spotting its silhouette against the storm clouds. Victor wasn't hunting blind. He was directing a symphony of death. A new sound cut through, a low growl of engines. 2 more SUVs appeared, cutting through the crowd, their windows tinted black. Marcus pushed Ellis toward a narrow gap between buildings, a service path barely wide enough for one. "Go," he barked, firing back to slow the pursuers. Bullets chewed the walls, but the gap was too tight for the vehicles. They reached a loading dock, its rusted gate half open. Marcus kicked it wide, carrying Max inside. Ellis close behind. The space was a cavern of crates and shadows, a temporary fortress. He set Max down, checking his pulse. Weak, but there. Ellis opened her kit, adjusting the IV with trembling hands. "He's losing blood," she said, her voice tight. Marcus nodded, his mind a battlefield of plans and contingencies. The drone's hum faded, but boots echoed outside. Victor's men, regrouping. His phone buzzed. A call from Daniels, his Delta ally. Marcus answered, keeping his voice low. "Talk fast." Daniels' voice was grim. "Victor's not just after you. He's got a client, someone with deep pockets, using this mess to spark a citywide riot. You're the trigger." Marcus's jaw clenched. The video, the crowd, the attack. It was a setup, a match to a fuse. "Where's safe?" he asked. Daniels hesitated. "Nowhere's safe, but I've got a safe house, edge of town. I'm 5 minutes out." Marcus hung up, weighing trust against survival. Daniels was solid, but Victor's reach was long. He turned to Ellis. "Can you keep him stable?" She nodded, her hand steady now. "I'll try." The gate rattled, a shadow moving outside. Marcus grabbed the rifle, positioning himself by the entrance. The door burst open, and he fired, dropping the first gunman. 2 more followed. But Marcus was a blur, disarming one, snapping the other's neck with a precise strike. The fight was over in seconds. Bodies slumped in the rain. Headlights pierced the storm. Daniels's van, skidding to a stop. "Ghost, move," he shouted. Marcus lifted Max, Ellis grabbing her kit, and they ran, piling into the van. Daniels floored it, the city blurring past. "This isn't revenge," Daniels said. "It's a power play. Victor's client wants chaos, and you're the perfect scapegoat." Marcus looked at Max, the dog's breathing shallow but stubborn. He'd fight, not for himself, but for the one who'd never left his side. The van roared into the night, but Marcus knew the war was just beginning. The van tore through the rain-soaked city, its tires hissing on wet asphalt as Daniels weaved past flashing sirens and flickering streetlights. Marcus sat in the back, Max cradled in his arms, the German shepherds breathing a faint rhythm against the storm's roar. Ellis worked beside him, her med kit open, adjusting the IV with hands steadied by necessity. The dog's pulse was weak, but it held, a stubborn spark of life that fueled Marcus's own. His shoulder throbbed, the bullet grazed a dull ache, but his mind was sharp, slicing through the chaos. Victor's men were still out there, their drone a ghost in the sky, and Daniels's words echoed. This wasn't just revenge, it was a power play, a plan to torch the city with Marcus as the fuse. The van swerved into an industrial district, its warehouses looming like forgotten giants. Daniels killed the headlights, pulling into a shadowed lot behind a rusted behemoth of a building. "Safe house," he grunted, cutting the engine. Marcus didn't trust safe. Not anymore. But Max needed shelter, and time was bleeding out. He carried the dog inside, Ellis close behind, her face pale but resolute. The warehouse was a cavern of crates and cobwebs, its air thick with dust and decay. Daniel secured the door, his rifle ready, while Marcus laid Max on a tarp, checking his vitals. Ellis knelt, monitoring the IV. "He's stable. Barely," she said. "We need a real clinic soon." Marcus nodded, his eyes scanning the dark corners. Safe houses were traps if you stayed too long, and Victor's reach was a noose tightening by the minute. The city was a battlefield now. The viral video, 30 million views and climbing, stoking protests that teetered on riots. News alerts pinged on his phone. Ghost, hero, or menace. His Delta Force past was an open book. His code name a rallying cry for some, a curse for others. He silenced the device, focusing on Max's shallow breaths. Daniels tossed him a burner phone. "Clean line, use it." Marcus knew who to call. Sarah, a hacker who'd run comms for his Delta unit, a genius with a keyboard and a grudge against the world. If anyone could crack Victor's plans, it was her. He dialed, the line crackling before her voice came through, sharp and wary. Ghost? Thought you were dead. Marcus didn't waste time. Victor's alive. Hunting me. I need eyes on him. Ah, Sarah cursed, keys already clacking. That video's a damn spotlight. Give me something to work with. Marcus relayed Daniels' intel, the client, the chaos, the drone. Sarah's silence was brief, her mind a machine. Got a hit. Victor's moving money, big sums, through shell companies. Someone's bankrolling him. Someone with pull. They're pushing the narrative. Your video's being spun to spark a citywide meltdown. Marcus's jaw tightened. Who's the client? Sarah hesitated. Can't pin it yet, but it's high up, corporate or government. They want the city burning, and you're the scapegoat. Marcus glanced at Max, the dog's eyes flickering open, meeting his. He'd fought for causes before, bled for flags and ideals. But Max was real, the only truth worth dying for. Find Victor, he said. I need a location. Sarah's keys clacked faster. He's got a hub downtown, encrypted servers. I'm in, but it's a fortress. You can't just walk in. Marcus didn't plan to. He needed a plan, not a suicide run. Keep digging. Call when you have something. He hung up, turning to Daniels. We need weapons. Gear. Daniels nodded, pointing to a crate. Stashed what I could. Marcus pried it open. Rifles, ammo, a few grenades. Not an arsenal, but enough. He checked a rifle, its weight familiar, like a ghost of his old life. Ellis watched, uneasy. You're not just a soldier, are you? She asked. Marcus didn't answer. He was Ghost, and that was enough. A faint hum broke the silence, the drone circling closer. Marcus grabbed the rifle, moving to a cracked window. The red light blinked through the rain, too low for a casual sweep. Victor's men were tightening the net. He aimed, firing a single shot. The drone sparked, spiraling into the ground with a crash. Daniels cursed. That'll bring them faster. Marcus nodded, already moving. We leave in 10? He packed the gear, his mind mapping the city, back roads, choke points, places to disappear. Ellis prepped Max, securing the IV for transport. He's tougher than you think, she said, a faint smile breaking through. Marcus hoped she was right. Footsteps echoed outside, soft but deliberate. Marcus signaled Daniels, who took position by the door. The lock clicked, tampered like the clinics had been. Marcus raised his rifle, heart steady, ready. The door creaked, but no one entered. A canister rolled in, hissing tear gas. Marcus grabbed Ellis, pulling her and Max behind a crate as the air turned toxic. Daniels fired blindly, shots ringing out. Shadows moved outside. 3, maybe 4. Their silhouettes sharp through the gas. Marcus tossed a grenade, not to kill but to scatter. The blast shook the warehouse, debris flying, and the shadows retreated. Move, Marcus shouted, lifting Max. They ran for the back exit, Daniels covering their rear. The van was still there, untouched. They piled in, Daniels flooring it as gunfire sparked behind them. The city blurred past, a maze of lights and chaos. Sarah's call came through as they hit the highway. Victor's hub is active, but there's more. His client's tied to a private security firm, one with government contracts. This is bigger than you. Ghost. Marcus looked at Max, the dog's chest rising, fighting. Bigger or not, he'd tear it down for Max. The warehouse faded in the rear view, but the hunters were still out there, and Marcus knew they'd never stop. The warehouse trembled under the weight of the storm, rain hammering the rusted roof like gunfire, but the real threat was closing in. Victor's men, their shadows slinking through the industrial maze outside. Marcus crouched by Max, The German shepherd's faint breaths a lifeline in the dark. Doctor, Ellis adjusted the AV, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes, while Daniels guarded the door, rifle ready, his grizzled face set like stone. The burner phone buzzed with Sarah's warning. They're coming, Ghost. 6, maybe 8, heavily armed. I've jammed their comms, but you've got minutes. Marcus's jaw tightened, his Delta Force instincts roaring back to life. The safe house was a trap now, its walls a cage for a fight he couldn't avoid. Max's eyes flickered open, meeting his, and Marcus whispered, "Hold on, boy." His voice a vow carved in steel. He checked the rifle from Daniel's stash, low ammo, but enough for precision. The grenades, 2 left, were his ace. He handed one to Daniels. "Back exit. Blow it if we need to run." Daniels nodded. No questions. "Doctor," Ellis looked up, her voice low. "If we move him, he might not make it." Marcus's heart twisted, but he had no choice. Victor wanted blood, and he'd burn the city to get it. The first sign of the attack was a flashbang, its deafening blast shattering a window. Glass raining down. Marcus shielded Max, his ears ringing, as smoke curled through the warehouse. Shadows moved, 4 men breaching the front, 2 circling the sides. Marcus fired, dropping one with the headshot, the silenced rifle a whisper in the chaos. Daniels returned fire, pinning the flankers, but a bullet grazed his leg, blood soaking his jeans. "I'm fine," he growled. Reloading. Marcus rolled behind a crate, drawing fire to give Daniels cover. The attackers were pros, moving in sync, their silenced shots chewing through wood and steel. Marcus tossed a grenade, the explosion rocking the warehouse, scattering the front team. 2 down, but more poured in, relentless. He fought like a machine, each shot a calculation, each move a memory of jungles and deserts where he'd been untouchable. But a bullet caught his side, ripping through muscle, and he staggered, blood pooling fast. Pain was an old friend, but it slowed him, and Victor's men sensed weakness. They advanced, a coordinated push, pinning him behind a stack of crates. Max whimpered, sensing the shift, and Marcus's heart sank. He couldn't fail him. Not now. Not ever. Ellis crawled to him, pressing a gauze pad to his wound. "You're bleeding out," she hissed. Marcus shook his head, reloading with blood-slick hands. Not yet. The warehouse was a battlefield, smoke and debris choking the air. Daniels was pinned, his ammo dwindling, and the attackers tightened their net. Marcus fired, dropping another, but a second bullet grazed his arm, forcing him to his knees. The lead gunman, a scarred brute with cold eyes, stepped forward, rifle aimed at Marcus's chest. "Ghost," he sneered. "Victor says, hello." Marcus stared back, defiant, but his body was betraying him, blood loss clouding his vision. Then, a low growl cut through the chaos. Max, weak and trembling, dragged himself from the tarp, his teeth bared, eyes blazing with loyalty. The dog lunged, sinking his fangs into the gunman's leg. A primal snarl echoing. The man screamed, stumbling, and Marcus seized the moment, tackling him, snapping his neck with a brutal twist. But Max collapsed, his strength spent, blood seeping from his wound. Marcus roared, Uki, a sound of rage and grief, and fired wildly, driving the others back. The warehouse door exploded inward, not from Victor's men but from Sarah, her van crashing through, tires screeching. She leaned out, a pistol in hand, firing at the attackers. "Get in! Ghost!" she shouted. Daniels limped forward, laying cover fire, while Marcus scooped Max into his arms, ignoring the fire in his side. Ellis grabbed her medkit, sprinting beside him. They piled into the van, Sarah flooring it as bullets sparked off the chassis. The warehouse shrank in the rear view, flames licking its frame from the grenade's aftermath. Sarah glanced back, her face grim. "I hacked their network. Victor's got a base downtown, but his client's the real player, Someone pulling strings to turn this city into a war zone. Marcus pressed a cloth to his wound, his other hand on Max's fur, the dog's chest barely moving. "Get us clear," he said, his voice hoarse. Sarah nodded, weaving through back roads, her laptop open, tracking Victor's men. "They're regrouping, but I've got a route." Daniels, patching his leg, grunted, "You're a damn magnet. Ghost." Marcus didn't reply. His eyes were on Max, the dog's loyalty a mirror of his own. He'd been shot, hunted, cornered, but Max's fight gave him purpose. The van sped into the night, the city a blur of chaos, protests escalating, sirens wailing, the video now a global spark. Sarah's voice cut through. "I've got a medic. Contact off-grid. We can stabilize Max." Marcus nodded, his blood staining the seat. Victor had come for him, but he'd underestimated Max. Underestimated the bond that made Ghost unstoppable. The fight wasn't over, but Marcus would tear through hell to keep Max alive, and Victor would learn that the hard way. The van rattled through the city's outskirts, its engine a low growl under the fading storm. Marcus sat in the back, his hand pressed against the blood-soaked Oz on his side, his other hand resting on Max's fur. The German shepherd's breathing was shallow, but his eyes, though weak, held a stubborn spark that kept Marcus anchored. Dr. Ellis monitored the IV, her face etched with exhaustion, while Sarah drove, her laptop open, tracking Victor's movements through hacked feeds. Daniels, patching his leg in the front seat, muttered curses about the city burning. Protests had erupted into riots, the viral video now a global firestorm, with Marcus's face as its emblem. Sarah's voice cut through the tension. "Victor's at an old steel plant, north edge of town. He's alone or close to it. His men are spread thin, chasing ghosts." Marcus nodded, his mind sharpening despite the pain. The plant was a fortress of rust and shadow, perfect for a trap, but also for a reckoning. He'd end this, not for vengeance, but for Max, the only soul who'd never asked him to be anything but himself. "Drop me there," he said, his voice low, final. Ellis protested. "You're half dead and Max needs you." Marcus met her gaze. "He needs me to finish this." Sarah glanced back, her eyes hard. "I've got the medic ready for Max, but you walk in there. You might not walk out." Marcus didn't flinch. "Then make sure he lives." The van slowed near the plant, its skeletal frame looming against the dawn. Marcus stepped out, rifle slung, grenades clipped to his belt, blood dripping through his makeshift bandage. The air was heavy with oil and decay. The plant's silence a lie. He moved like a predator, slipping through a shattered gate, his boots silent on cracked concrete. Inside, the plant was a maze of rusted beams and silent machinery, shadows dancing in the faint light. Victor was here. Marcus felt it, the way a hunter knows prey. He climbed a catwalk, ignoring the fire in his side, and spotted him. Viktor Kuznetsov, lean and scarred, standing in an open bay, a pistol in hand, his eyes glinting with hate. "Ghost," Victor called, his accent thick. "You took everything. Now I take you." Marcus stepped into the light, rifle raised. "You shouldn't have touched my bow." Victor laughed, cold and sharp. "A dog? That's what this is for?" Marcus's eyes burned. "He's worth more than you'll ever know." The first shot came fast, Victor's pistol barking, but Marcus dove behind a steel press, returning fire. Bullets sparked off metal, the plant a cacophony of ricochets and rage. Marcus moved, flanking Victor, his training a second skin despite the blood loss. He tossed a grenade, not to kill but to drive Victor back, the explosion shaking the floor. Victor retreated, firing wildly, but Marcus was relentless, closing the gap. They collided in a clearing, rifles spent, fists flying. Victor was strong, fueled by years of hate, but Marcus was a storm, each strike a memory of Max's loyalty, of nights when the dog's warmth had kept him from breaking. A blow to Marcus's wound sent him to his knees, blood pooling, but he caught Victor's wrist, twisting until the pistol fell. They grappled, a brutal dance. Marcus's vision blurring as Victor landed a knee to his chest. "You die here," Victor snarled. Drawing a knife, Marcus blocked the blade, his arm screaming, and headbutted Victor, staggering him. He tackled Victor to the ground, pinning him, his fist raised. Victor's eyes widened, expecting death, but Marcus stopped, his breath ragged, Max's face in his mind. "I'm not you," he said, the voice raw. "This ends." He slammed Victor's head into the concrete, knocking him out, but left the knife where it lay. Killing him would feed the cycle, hate breeding hate, blood for blood. Marcus chose different. He staggered to his feet, blood dripping, and bound Victor's hands with a cable. The plant was silent again, the fight over, but Marcus's strength was fading. His phone buzzed. "Sarah, Max is with the medic. He's fighting. Where are you?" Marcus leaned against a beam, his vision swimming. "Plant, Victor's down. Get me out." He stumbled toward the exit, each step a battle, the dawn light blinding. Sarah's van screeched up, Daniels limping out to help him in. "You're a damn fool," Daniels muttered, but his eyes held respect. Marcus collapsed in the back, his hand reaching for Max's empty tarp, the dog's absence a void. Sarah sped off, her voice urgent. "Medic's got Max stable, but it's touch and go. Victor's claim nut is still out there, pulling strings." Marcus nodded, barely conscious, his mind on Max. He'd fought for him, not for glory or revenge, but for the bond that had saved him when the world turned dark. Victor was beaten, but the war wasn't over. The city burned, the video a catalyst for chaos, and Marcus knew the real puppet master was watching. He closed his eyes, Max's loyal gaze his only anchor, and whispered, "Keep fighting, boy." The van roared into the light, carrying a man who'd broken the cycle of hate, but at a cost that left him teetering on the edge. The safe house was a fortress of shadows, its concrete walls a fragile barrier against the chaos of a city unraveling. Marcus sat on the floor, his back against a crate, his bandaged side aching but forgotten as he watched Max breathe. The German shepherd lay on a padded mat, his chest rising with a steadiness that felt like a miracle after the bullet that had nearly stolen him. Sarah's medic, a grizzled ex-combat surgeon named Doc, wiped his hands on a rag, his weathered face softening. "He's a fighter, that one. Bullet missed the lung by a hair. Give him time, he'll be back." Marcus nodded, his throat tight, his hand resting on Max's fur, the dog's warmth a tether to hope. Dr. Ellis, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, checked the IV, her presence a quiet strength. Sarah worked at a corner table, her laptop casting a blue glow as she hacked into feeds, keeping Victor's lingering shadows at bay. Daniels, his leg bandaged, leaned by the door, rifle ready, his loyalty unspoken but ironclad. The city outside was a war zone, riots fueled by the viral video, now at 60 million views, had fractured streets into battlegrounds, with Marcus's name a spark for both rage and reverence. But in this dim, dusty room, Max's steady breaths were the only truth that mattered. Marcus traced the scars on his knuckles, memories of wars and losses, and looked at Max, whose eyes fluttered open, meeting his with a trust that cut deeper than any blade. "We made it, boy," he whispered, his voice breaking, the weight of gunfire, blood, and Victor's hate dissolving into this moment. Doc knelt beside Max, checking his pulse. "He'll need a week, maybe 2, but he's got heart. Like you." Marcus's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Max had been his shadow through nightmares, a stray pup found in a war zone who'd chosen him when the world had turned away. Losing him would have broken what war hadn't, but Max had fought, just as Marcus had fought for him. Sarah's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. Victor's locked up. Cops dragged him from the plant. Your cable tie's still on, but his client's a phantom. Corporate, maybe higher. I'm digging, but they're scrubbing evidence fast. Marcus's jaw tightened. The client, the architect of the riots, was still out there. Their plan to burn the city hobbled but not dead. By sparing Victor, Marcus had snapped a link in their chain of hate, but the war wasn't over. He looked at Max, the dog's tail twitching faintly, and knew he'd chosen right. This city, with its cameras, cops, and hunters, was no place for them now. Get us out, Coco, he told Sarah, his voice low but firm. She nodded, fingers flying. Fake IDs, a truck, a route north to a nowhere town. You'll be ghosts again. Dr. Ellis paused, her hand still on Max's IV. You're leaving? After everything? Marcus met her gaze, steady. He deserves peace, I owe him that. She handed him a vial of antibiotics, her eyes soft. Keep him safe. Daniels clapped his shoulder, wincing from his wound. You're a damn fool. Ghost, but the best kind. Sarah's network moved like clockwork. IDs, cash, a battered pickup waiting by dusk. Marcus carried Max to the truck, settling him on a blanket in the passenger seat, the dog's eyes brighter, his breathing stronger. Ellis gave final instructions. Rest, meds, no running yet. Marcus nodded, his gratitude silent but deep. The city's glow faded as he drove, its sirens and smoke replaced by open roads, fields stretching under a starlit sky. Max stirred, nudging his hand, and Marcus scratched his ears, the dog's warmth a balm for wounds no bandage could touch. Sarah's last act was a message, sent through encrypted channels to the shadows who might still hunt. Ghost is gone. Follow, and you'll find only trouble. It was a line in the sand, backed by the legend of a man who'd toppled empires and walked away. Marcus didn't look back. The road ahead a promise of something new. The days blurred, the truck rolling through quiet towns, past barns and rivers, until they reached a place that felt right, a small town nestled in a valley, its streets lined with oaks, its people too busy living to care about headlines. Marcus rented a cabin on the outskirts, a simple place with a yard where Max could heal. The first morning, he carried Max to the grass, the dog sniffing the air, his tail wagging with a strength that made Marcus's chest ache. They sat together, the sunrise painting the hills gold, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt the weight of his past. Delta Force, missions, the codename Ghost, slip away like a tide. Max nudged him, demanding a scratch, and Marcus laughed, a sound he'd forgotten he could make. The world caught up slowly, but not to them. Sarah's leaks hit the dark web first, then mainstream news, exposing Victor's ties to a private security firm with government contracts. The client, still unnamed, faced scrutiny as protests shifted. Hashtag justice for Max evolving into a call for truth. Marcus's story, pieced together from leaks and eyewitnesses, became a legend, a man who'd fought for his dog, spared his enemy, and vanished. Posts flooded social media, some calling him a vigilante, others a hero, but all agreed on one thing. He'd stood for something real. Marcus didn't see the hashtags or the murals painted in his honor. He was too busy watching Max chase a butterfly, the dog's limp fading with each day. The cabin became home, its walls holding no ghosts, only the sound of Max's collar jingling and the creak of a porch chair where Marcus sat at dusk, a beer in hand, the horizon endless. He'd fought for Max, not for glory or vengeance, but for the moth that had saved him when nothing else could. The town knew him as Marcus, a quiet man with a loyal dog, and that was enough. Max grew stronger, his runs longer, his barks echoing through the valley. One evening, as they walked a dirt path, Max bounding ahead. Marcus stopped. The stars above a map of battles won. He'd left a message, a life, a war behind, but he'd gained something better, peace, for both of them. Marcus, a Delta Force hero, fought to save Max from enemies and injustice. Thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell to never miss our latest stories.